Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, and maybe good evening for those of you. I don't know where you are, maybe in India, and and welcome to the first session of the Torah-Thon. Uh, we have a short amount of time, and I thought I would start with a midrash that you're probably familiar with, but I thought if we take a closer look at it, we can expand it in a couple of different directions. So there's a very famous midrash. I'll read it and translate it for you. It comes from the Sifrei, which is a midrash halacha on Bamidbar and Dvarim. This is the toward the end of Sefer Dvarim on Zot HaBracha, and talks about Matan Torah. And the Sifrei writes as follows: wherever you see the three dots, it means I edited just a little bit. I took out some other stuff. Kishenigla HaKadosh Baruch Hu litain Torah liYisrael. When God revealed himself to give the Torah to Yisrael, lo al Yisrael bilvad hu nigla, ela al kol ha'umot. God did not appear only to Israel, but he actually tried giving the Torah. He tried revealing himself and giving the Torah to lots of other nations. Tchila halach etzel b'nei Esav. To start with, he went to Esav. Amar lahem. He asked them, "Mekablim atem et Torah? Will you accept the Torah?" Amru lo makatuba. So they said, well, what's in it? Right? Before you sign any kind of a deal, you want to know what you're getting yourself into. Amar lahem lo tirtzach. He said, it says in there, you're not allowed to kill. You're not allowed to murder. Amru kol atzmam shalotama anashim va'avihem rotzeachu. They said, that's who we are. We're murderers. That's like our legacy. Right? Why is that their legacy? Shena Emar Vayadayim Yidei Esav. He lives by his hands. That was part of the bracha that Yitzchak gave to Esav, or actually what he actually said to Yaakov about Esav. And so he lives by his hands. And later on it says when he actually speaks to Esav, he says that you're going to live by the sword. So apparently, this midrash understands what that means is Yaakov has just destined Esav to living by the sword. They're murderers. So how can they possibly accept the Torah that includes in it lo tirtzach? Of course, it's interesting that the midrash says that was the one thing that Hashem decided to tell them. I mean, the deck is sort of stacked, right? Meaning, he could have told them something else was in the Torah, and they would have accepted that one. But he chose the one that they would not like. So Midrash continues, Halach Yisrael b'nei Ammon and Moab. So he went to Ammon and Moab. And Amar lahem, he said to them, Mikablim atem et Torah. You want to accept the Torah? Amru lo, ma katuv ba. They said, what's in it? And again, Hashem's response is very carefully tailored for them, because he doesn't say to them, oh, it says lo tirtzach. He says something else. Amar lahem lo tinaf. You're not, that adulteries and incestuous relationships are forbidden. Amru lo, so they said to him, oh no, kol atzma shel erva lahem. The whole essence of their whole essence is they were born out of an illicit relationship. If you remember, Ammon and Moab were the children of Lot's two daughters. Lot was their father and their grandfather. Do I need to say more than that? Right? So his daughters seduced him that night in the cave, with those nights in the cave, and they gave birth to Lot's children / grandchildren. Shne'emar, as the pasuk says, "V'ta'arena shnei bnot Lot me'avihen," and those children were Ammon and Moab. So again, Hashem stacks the deck against Ammon and Moab. They will not be willing to accept something that goes against themselves. Halach etzel bnei Yishmael. Amar lahem mikablim atem et Torah. Will you accept the Torah to Yishmael's descendants? Amru lo, ma katuv ba. What does it say in it? And again, they get a response that is tailored. It's like Hashem is, making sure that they all reject it. What does it say? Amar lahem lo tignov. You're not allowed to steal. Oh, we can't do that. Amru lo. Kol atzmam avihem listim haya. Says that's who we are. We our foundations we're thieves. Shne'emar, as the pasuk says, "V'hu yeh pere adam." Right, he will be a wild man, literally not a wild man, but a wild donkey of a man. And interestingly, the Midrash does not quote the rest of the pasuk, which I think is what the source really is. Yado ba'kol v'yad kol bo. His hand is in everybody's business. So if his hand's in everybody's business, then obviously he's taking things from everybody else. So here we have the Midrash. I assume that many of you are familiar with this. Kadosh Baruch Hu offered the Torah to lots of other peoples, and they all rejected it because there were things in there that were inappropriate for them. Kevan Shara Kadosh Baruch Hu kach netanam Yisrael. Once God saw that, he came to Bnei Yisrael, and he said, "Will you accept the Torah?" And the response, as we know, the Midrash says, "Na'aseh v'nishma." Okay, not going to get into now the difference between this Midrash and what it says actually in the Chumash. But I will explore this in two directions. One, it's interesting that this Midrash talks about 3 nations, or 3+ nations. Starts with Esav, goes to Ammon and Moab, and continues with Yishmael. Why these 3 nations? So simply, these are the 3 branches of Abraham's family that were rejected in Sefer Bereshit. Yishmael was rejected, and Hashem said, "You're not part of the Brit, and you have to throw Yishmael out of the house." So Yishmael is out. Okay, Ammon and Moab, Lot is rejected. He's rejected because basically he left the promised land to go someplace else. He left Eretz Yisrael, or whatever was called back then, to go someplace else. So he rejected Abraham and his tradition. That's the way this Midrash understands that. So, and then we have the first one, which is Edom, which is Esav. Okay, and Esav is also, he's the rejected one. He does not get the good bracha from Yitzchak. And Hashem comes and affirms the bracha. He affirms the bracha. The Birkat Abraham to Yaakov, and exclusively to Yaakov. So we have over here basically a midrash that says, "Hey, let's try to understand Matan Torah in light of Sefer Bereshit." Sefer Bereshit is the background. All of those who rejected, or who are rejected by the storyline in Sefer Bereshit, the branches of Abraham's family that got peeled away and tossed aside, the story doesn't continue with them, right? So the Midrash here is trying to say, look, Hashem really would have liked to have lots of people accept the Torah, but that was not realistic because they were just unfit for it. Each one for their own reason. That's one way of taking this Midrash, to understand the Midrash in the background of Sefer Bereshit. There's another way to look at this Midrash, and interestingly, I would say maybe even to rewrite the Midrash, because there's something over here that to me in this Midrash seems missing, and it could be that it's in other places, but in this Midrash it's interesting, because in this Midrash you'll notice the focus is exclusively on mitzvot. The focus of the Torah is mitzvot. Now that shouldn't be surprising to us. Those who learned the first Rashi in Chumash know that the Rashi says that the essence of the Torah is mitzvot, and that's why the Torah should have started with Shmot Perek Yud Beit, with the first mitzvah. And this Midrash seems to focus on mitzvot. Hashem wanted to give the Torah. What's the Torah? So apparently the Torah is mitzvot. Okay, so to Edom he tells them one mitzvah, to Ammon and Moab he tells them a different mitzvah, to Bnei Yisrael he gives them a different mitzvah. And then you look at the language of the Midrash in the last line, Kevan Shara Kadosh Baruch Hu, Kach Nitanam LiYisrael. He gave them to Yisrael. Them meaning the Torah is singular. So them meaning apparently the mitzvot. And here, the mitzvot that this Midrash chose are obviously the mitzvot that are listed in Aseret HaDibrot. What I'd like to suggest is that based on the Chumash, there's actually something different that's going on. Okay, meaning aside from the fact that Sefer Breshit is background for all of this, there's something else based on the Chumash that's happening over here. And for that, I don't have it up in front of me, but I'm just going to read to you the the opening of Perek Yutet in Sefer Shmot. Perek Yutet is the Perek where Hashem tells Moshe to present to Bnei Yisrael what they're going to accept. And this is Perek Yutet, Pasuk Dalid. Atem reitem asher asiti leMitzrayim va'asa etchem al kanfei nisharim va'avi etchem elai. You saw what I did to Mitzrayim. I brought you out on eagle's wings, and I brought you to me. Continues in the next pasuk. So if you listen to what my voice says, and you protect, you guard my brit, then then you will be for me a special people from amongst all the other nations. Okay, there's a little bit more there. Those who want, you can open up to the beginning of Perek Yutet. It turns out that there are two different things that Hashem presents to Moshe and encourages Moshe to present to Bnei Yisrael. One of them is Im Shamua Tishma'u B'Kolei, if you listen to my voice. And that sounds like, this midrash that we have in front of us, right? So to Ammon and Moab, it's lo tin'af, and to Bnei Yishmael, it's lo tignov, and to Edom, it's lo tirtzach. Okay, and that's shamoah tishma'u b'koli. The question is, what is the difference between listening to Hashem's voice, right, obeying Hashem's voice on the one hand, and shmartem et briti? And that's what I want to explore for the next 12 minutes that we have, okay? And for that, I'm going to start with two quotes from Rabbi Sachs. Rabbi Sachs talks about the difference between covenant and contract, okay? And here are two pieces. I'll just read them out loud. You can see it in front of you. He speaks about this in lots of other places, and this is anyway. Social contract, he writes, creates a state, right? Social covenant creates a society. A society is different from a state. The state is institutions, right? It's I give this and I get this in return. I pay my taxes. I get a police force and the garbage men to collect my garbage. Society is different. Society is when people have become interdependent. Social contract is about power and how it is to be handled within a political framework. Social covenant is how people live together despite their differences. Right? When you have to get along with lots of other people. So one way to do it is by having a bunch of rules. I'm sure you all know this. You go to school in different places. You go to work. In work, there are rules that govern the work, that govern the workplace. But aside from the rules that you have that govern your workplace, or the rules that you have that govern your communities or your schools, there are norms that are sort of sometimes even just unspoken. They're just understood. Like, you don't do those kinds of things, right? Like if I have a dog, I don't let my dog poop on your doorstep. Whether it's illegal or not doesn't make a difference. You just don't do things if you want to live together with other people, right? So that's a social covenant as opposed to a contract. He continues on the fourth line. Social contract is about government. Social covenant is about coexistence. Right now, many ways of saying the same thing. Social contract is about laws and their enforcement, like parking. Right? You park in certain places. You're allowed to park here. You're not allowed to park there. Right? But social confidence is about the values we share. So, for example, when you park your car, there's no law that says that you're not allowed to take up two spots. But it's just a creepy thing to do when you live with other people and there are only so many parking spots. If you park poorly, then you're going to be basically telling somebody else that they don't have a parking spot. So there's no law about that, but you want to have good relationships with your neighbors. Social confidence about the values we share. Social contract about the use of potentially coercive force, like the police or fines or stuff like that. Social confidence is about moral commitment, the values we share, the ideals that inspire us to work together for the sake of the common good. Okay, this is a theme that Rabbi Sachs speaks about, and writes about frequently. I'll just uh, I'll just share one more piece, similar idea. In a covenant, two or more individuals, each respecting the dignity and the integrity of the other, come together in the bond of love and trust to share their interests, sometimes even to share their lives, by pledging their faithfulness to one another to do what neither can achieve alone. Okay, this is much loftier, right? The first quote was very punchy. This is a lofty, really a lofty ideal of trying to live together. So, for example, a marriage. A marriage is not a contract. Some people would see it that way, right? Oh, the ketubah says you got to do this and you got to do this, right? But a marriage is not a contract; it's a covenant, right? Two people get together not because they think that they're going to be able to manage a household well. Right? So it's not a technical matter. It's because they think that they're going to be able to share their lives well. They'll be able to build a home, not a house, but a home in which children can grow up and be loved and be surrounded by similar kinds of values. A contract, he writes, fourth line, is a transaction. Covenant is a relationship. Or to put it slightly differently, a contract is about interests, meaning what do I get? What do I have to give and what do I get? And it's barter, it's give and take. That's a contract. You go to work, right? You put in your hours, you get your paycheck at the end of the month, right? You want to buy a car, you pay your money and you get your car. You don't pay your money, you don't get your car. Covenant, however, is about identity. It's about you and me coming together to form an us. That's why contracts benefit, but covenants transform. And in fact, there's a kind of leadership called transformational leadership. And this is exactly what it's about. It is transactional leadership where you vote for my bill and I'll vote for yours. You do this for me, you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. And then there's transformational leadership. Transformational leadership basically comes in and inspires the people to say, we have common values, we have shared ideals. And in this context, I want to go back and look at Matan Torah. Because that midrash that we read, right, as nice as it is and we learned, that midrash basically sounds like a contract. Sounds like the Torah is a contract. It's a list of do's and don'ts. Ishmael couldn't accept this one. Okay, you can't accept the contract because you can't fulfill the terms of the contract. Esav Edom couldn't do this one. Okay, so you can't be part of the contract. Um, but when you take a look at the story of Matan Torah, the story of Matan Torah does not present it only as a contract. The contractual part is when you say Im Shamoah Tishma'u B'Koli. But when you talk about Ushmartem et Briti, I want you to keep my covenant. That covenant is completely different. That covenant is not, what do I do now? That covenant is a part of what makes us and Hashem, what makes Bnei Yisrael and Hashem part of an us. In words of Rabbi Sachs, two or more individuals respecting the dignity and the integrity of the other come together in a bond of love and trust to even share their lives, pledging their faithfulness to one another to do what neither can achieve alone. What is it that Hashem can't achieve without us? Why did Hashem go to everybody else in the world and offer them the Torah? What is Sefer Breshit about? Right? And in that vein, what is the entire Torah about? So I want to suggest that the entire Torah is not about contracts. The entire Torah is about establishing a brit, a covenant with Hashem. In a covenant, Hashem is looking for partners. He's not looking for robots to obey his instructions. He's not looking for computers that can be programmed. He's looking for partners who can share the ideals that Hashem has in this world, the ideals of tzedakah and mishpat, the ideas of goodness and justice, the ideas of what it means to be a human. He's looking for partners who can take those ideals and share those ideals with the rest of humanity. He tried. Believe me, he tried. He tried at the beginning of Breshit with the first man and the first woman, was not so successful. He tried with their children, Cain and Hevel, was not so successful. He tried with Noach after he restarted the world, and that was also not so successful. Right? He tried with Abraham, and eventually part of Abraham's descendants had to be rejected. And another part of Abraham's descendants had to be rejected. And another part of Abraham's descendants had to be rejected. And that's that midrash. All those that were rejected. But Hashem saw potential partners in the line that went from Abraham to Yitzchak to Yaakov and to their descendants. And when those descendants come out of Mitzrayim, he brings them to Har Sinai and he says, are you guys prepared to be my partners? That's what Na'aseh v'nishma means. We're going to be Hashem's partners in taking what Hashem does and taking Hashem's ideals and his values and his message to humanity. And we are going to be his partners in bringing that message to the rest of humanity. I want to add one more piece, actually two more pieces to this this notion of covenant. What makes a covenant different from a contract? Number one, a covenant, especially a covenant brit with Hashem, is eternal. It's never broken. And that is profoundly significant. One of the things that the Christians, and those who know a little bit about Christian replacement theology, the Christianity believed that the Jews used to be the chosen people, and then God unchose them because they broke the covenant. The Torah lets us know that brit is unbreakable, and it's eternal, and that's connected actually to the other piece of what covenant really is. In a contract, if I don't keep my side, you don't have to keep yours. If I don't pay, I don't get the product that you're supposed to deliver. If I don't show up at work, I don't collect my salary. That's a contract. I break my part of the contract, you don't have to keep yours. In a covenant, by contrast, if I break my part of the covenant, that covenant is still binding, and you are going to work really hard to bring me back. You're going to work really hard to make sure that I come back to fulfill my part of the covenant, because covenants are eternal. Okay? It works that way, by the way, in marriages. It works that way in any kind of society that's built on covenantal relationships. And for that, I just want to close. I see I have literally 1 minute left. I just want to close with a pasuk that we read 2 weeks ago at the end of the Torah-Thon. And you have it up on your screen right now. The Torah-Thon, as you know, is the list of awful things that are going to happen to Am Yisrael if they don't uphold the brit. What does Hashem say at the very end? The very, very end. Pasuk Mem Daled, 44. V'af gam zot biotam be'eretz oivehem, lo ma'astim v'lo ge'altim lechalutam lahafer briti itam. I want you to know that even if they've gone into galut and even if their lives are miserable, at no point does that mean that I have broken the covenant with them. I will never break the covenant with Bnei Yisrael. Ki ani Hashem Elohehem. I am Hashem, their God. In fact, the reason why Hashem is going to do all these things to Am Yisrael if they break their side is because he's trying to bring them back into the brit. This is the ultimate expression of commitment, that no matter what Am Yisrael does, Hashem will never ever give up on Am Yisrael, no matter how bad we think things are. Hashem is letting us know that what's happening to us is not because the covenant has been broken, but because He is working really, really hard to uphold it and to make sure that we are part of that as well. So, as we go into Shavuot, Shavuot is not just Matan Torah, the acceptance of mitzvot and the acceptance of obligations and the do's and don'ts. Shavuot is a time when we renew our brit with Hashem, we renew our partnership with Hashem, we renew our relationship with Hashem, and hopefully we will see Hashem working really hard to renew that relationship back with us.